So, hi everybody. Thanks for tuning in to my show. It's called A Modern Healer's Journey. My name is Tammy Bennett. I'm an Oriental Medicine Doctor in Florida. And I'm joined today by Kelli Johnson, who is an old friend, a colleague, a spiritual mentor, and lots of other things that I can't even mention because they're so vast. Kelli and I've met, I want to say at least 25 years ago, somewhere in that time frame. We're both, 31 now, so that's awesome. And Kelli's a unique individual. She has many facets to her personality. We'll cover a couple things today, probably have her come back on the show and talk about other things. But today we're going to talk about how we met, Kelli's journey to acupuncture, how it helped her and her family, and her work in the world of music and spirituality and being a modern shaman that she is. So, Kelli, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tammy.
Thank you. So tell everybody how we met, your version of it.
So I had a knee injury. I was an avid hiker. I was out in the middle of the Grand Canyon and I blew out my right knee. And so, of course, everybody says surgery, surgery, surgery. And I just had an intuition that that was not going to be the best path for me. I sought out Tammy, introduced by another colleague, and she saved my knee. And I have still 31 years plus 31 years, and the knee is great. I've never had an issue with it after a couple of treatments. I've also utilized acupuncture for respiratory issues. I'd had a history of asthma and a lot of respiratory infections. I took a healing journey through that, but needed some support to continue to make my lungs stronger. Tammy has helped with that a lot. Our family has had issues with a lot of respiratory colds and flu. I avoided gallbladder surgery through education, nutrition, acupuncture treatment. Very, very thankful. So I've used acupuncture as a primary healing modality for myself and my family for 30 plus years.
A lot of people don't realize that in other parts of the world, because, we're US centric, right? So those that don't travel a lot don't realize that major parts of the world use traditional Chinese healing as well as Ayurvedic healing and Native American healing and herbalism all over. It's not secondary, it's primary. So I think people need to know that. I think one of the things that I read about years ago was that in the early development of the American Medical Association, that's when, like in the 20s to the 30s, there was this shift to a different kind of medicine from old-fashioned or hillbilly or mountain man, shaman medicine. But what's interesting is, we've come full circle in a way. At least I could say that, and I'm not going to get into a political discussion. We'll do that another time. But at least in the last, up through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, the pandemic shifted things a little bit in a weird direction. So hopefully this opening of our minds to what a pandemic looks like now has maybe shifted us back again into a better direction to look at healing each other's front line first before requesting help on the other side,
Absolutely.
So,
and a lot of it is self-responsibility, and people are really starting to open up to that.
Yeah. So tell me about your history, your roots in shamanistic tradition. How did you know? Was there an ancestor that taught you? How did it all happen?
So growing up, my grandparents on my mom's side are Cherokee and German, and they left the reservation in the early 1900s because they wanted to be able to live and have a form of employment. And so they used a lot of herbs to change the color of their skin. My grandmother had 13 children, 2 sets of twins at home. All of her babies were born at home. And there was a local witch that lived in the middle of a cornfield, and I was a curious kid. We'd go out. My grandfather was a musician. He played everything with a string on it, and so we would go up there and play music and hang out and visit family. And I would always sneak off and go see Hildegard. And so I learned about herbs through her and how amazing it was for the body. And my grandpa would sneak me out into the woods, and he taught me things like smudging and the 7 elements that were sacred to life. And don't tell your
grandmother. So was this in the Carolinas?
It was in North Carolina.
All
yeah.
Right. So I'm getting my geography.
Not too far from Turkey. My tribal affiliation is from the Eastern Band of Cherokee, from the Qualla Nation and the Wild Potato Clan. So, and I was born and reared in North Carolina in a very non-traditional manner because, again, my grandmother was very adamant that times were changing and that she wanted less conflict and more integration so that schools could be available, medicine could be available, because there was so much judgment against Native Americans when she was growing up that those services were not available. She would be shunned. She couldn't go shopping in certain stores. She couldn't go to church in certain stores. Certain churches would not accept Native Americans to come in there and pray with them.
And this was what, in the 60s? 70s,
Yeah.
60s, 70s?
In the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
60s.
You met Hildegard. Your grandfather's teaching you things. Yes. What was the first profound experience with shamanistic practice that you had, your earliest memory?
I caught a ball of lightning.
Okay. So you're Thor.
Okay. I was 10 years old. And I caught a ball of lightning, and I didn't know what to do with it. You know, what do you do? It's lightning. Okay. It hurts.
Wait, is that a metaphor, or you got struck by lightning?
Yeah. No, I caught it. I caught a ball of lightning.
Okay, but is that a metaphor, like for an experience where you're doing energy work, or literally it's thundering and lightning and you are like...
It's literally thundering and lightning, and it came down and I caught the ball.
Got it. Okay.
And it threw. I was in the house. It came through the water system. Yeah. I was washing my hands. It came out of a faucet, and it was about this big. And then I was on the ceiling.
So were you?
It exploded, and it threw me into the ceiling. Then I fell to the floor, and I had a whole experience with that. After that, I started having really, I called them very weird dreams, but they were actually visions. So it kind of triggered something. And then when I hit puberty, it really triggered my intuition. People thought I was crazy because I would talk to the wind, and the wind would tell me things about people. The wind would tell me herbs to use for healing, and where the horses hid, so I could go find horses and ride the horses.
That's awesome. So
it was just something that happened. I just thought everybody talked to the wind. I didn't realize until I was about 15 or 16 that everybody didn't have this, and they really thought I was crazy. They thought that a ghost was talking to me.
They touched.
Yeah, I was weird.
So how did you survive in that world of, like, I'm going to just use quote unquote normal, because we know, normal means a lot to a lot of different people, but in that era, how did you survive? Did you withdraw? Did you embrace it? Did you talk to your grandparents more? What did your siblings think?
So some of what happened to me was, by the time I was 14, my parents had divorced, and they moved from the tiny little town that I grew up in, and my mom moved to Greensboro, and I went to a different school. I didn't follow the trajectory I was at my other school, and I got into a whole bunch of new stuff, and one of them was a drama department. And the drama teacher was amazing. And Dan counseled me. He talked to me. He realized I was not crazy. He thought I was gifted and that I had insight and intuition that needed to be cultivated. So he actually worked with me a lot, steered me into more esoteric teachings. I started reading books about meditation and vision questing. I reiterated some of that with my grandfather, but by the time I was 17, my grandfather passed away. My grandmother lived to be the ripe old age of 103. But, again, she just wouldn't talk to me about anything. She was not going to go there. She had her own intuitions. She had relationships with many ghosts as I was growing up. And, whenever I was a kid, I had really gotten involved with that. There was a cartoon that came on called Scooby-Doo. It's still on to this day. They were all ghost hunters. And because I lived in North Carolina, there's a lot of ghosts to hunt around there. And so I got with my drama group and we went ghost hunting and talked to spirits and had seances and Ouija boards and had apparitions come and just really embraced all that. And I got involved. I think some of the books with Edgar Cayce was writing. I thought that was very fascinating that he would go into these meditative states and channel healing information for people. So it just really drew me there. And my life was drawing me there. Things that I couldn't have planned for, magical intersections with certain individuals that really changed everything about how I was growing up and what I got into.
So when was your first formal meeting with someone to heal that? When was the first time you were in charge of healing someone besides yourself and besides the family?
I had, so this is about 30 some odd years ago. I had taken several different certifications and trainings to do shamanic energy work, and very much like how Reiki is provided for people on that line. Right. So I had trained with some medicine women and medicine men. Someone came to me with stage 4 lymphoma. And he had a dream that a young woman that was part Native American with really wild hair, he would meet them. And so he somehow found me and came to my home. And I only did one session with this man. I used crystals, I used sage, I used some energy forms very similar to Reiki and prayer. And I talked to him about what he really wanted to accomplish by healing and what he would do if he received healing. And in that process, it was the first session that I had channeled so much energy. I was like a hose, and I sweat like I was in a sweat lodge. So I literally had to stop halfway through the session and get towels and put them on the floor. I was sweating so profusely, channeling this energy through me into him. And him too. He sweat a whole lot. And so after the session, he was very dazed. It took him about 15 minutes to get up off the table. I had him things to drink. I just had this knowing I was supposed to go out to the sweat lodge and get some ash and put it on the bottom of his feet. And when I did that, he had a remarkable clearing of his energy. He got grounded. 4 months later, I heard from him. He was on my doorstep, banging on the door. He didn't tell me he was coming over. And all he had were labs in his hand to show me that he had been completely healed.
That's fantastic. I get goosebumps with that because I have a very strong intuition about different people and healing methods. And I read a book about a guy. It's the earthing people. I'm sure you know who they are. There's a guy who developed a method to harness earthing for people that can't get their feet in the earth. They can't be in water all the time. They live in a big city and they don't have access. And it reminds me of his healing journey. I'll insert his name after the fact. I can't remember it offhand, but he
Yeah.
basically grounded himself when he had a very poor liver function, and they said he was going to have a liver transplant. He was in stage 4 of that liver disease, and they said basically go get your affairs in order. And he had all these things, beautiful art and a big home and architecture and whatnot, and he was surrounded by these wonderful things. And he said, if I don't have my life, I have nothing, obviously. And
Yeah.
he had heard about a Native American woman who had a grandchild that was very sick, and she buried her up to her head in the earth, and she would sweat and the earth would absorb that, and she would get this detox from the clay earth, and it helped this young child survive this illness. And he thought, well, if it worked for her, maybe it'll work for me. And he figured out earthing, and
Yeah.
now he's got a company where he provides earthing devices for people and so on. And we've used that for some patients, and I used it actually for myself for an ear infection that wouldn't clear up, and antibiotics weren't working. It just, there was something stuck, and I ended up sleeping on this little earthing device, and it worked remarkably well. But back to you and energy. So some people don't know what Reiki is, that might see this show and they're like, what the heck is Reiki? You want to give us a little description of what Reiki is?
Absolutely. It's where you channel energy from the universe. It's absolutely unlimited. So you're not giving of your own energy. You're a hose. And you go through a series of teachings where symbols that, so there was a guy, his name is Makai Usui, and he received in a vision a teaching and symbols to create protection in his body, and the symbols also seat an energy channel into your body so that you do channel this universal life force energy from your body through your hands into other people. You can direct it without them even being in the room. So you can have them laying on a table. And so it's a form of hands-on healing, along with there are other things that are equally as effective, such as prana healing, and that is another form of Reiki, essentially, that it's channeling energy. So you go through classes, you receive attunements to get the symbols placed into your chakras, and then you have the ability to channel that energy.
And are attunements prayers or divinations?
It's divination.
Okay. So something that came to my mind when you were talking about that was the fact that you caught that bolt of lightning, right? That ball of lightning. Do you think that gave you a higher ability to connect with something like that? Because I know a lot of people in my social circles that would say I've had a Reiki healing or a Reiki session, or somebody taught me Reiki, but not all Reiki is Reiki, and not all Reiki is equal, right? So tell me about, if you were to seek out a Reiki healing for yourself, what you would look for someone, their credentialing or their abilities.
I would probably go through a word of mouth from people who had experience from other practitioners, and I know one incident in particular. Not that these can be bad things; it's just a personal choice. Where I was in it was a weekend presentation, like a seminar, and they had this huge room, and they had all these tables, and everybody was laying on these tables and receiving Reiki energy. And I thought, I wouldn't want to open up myself like that in a public place. I would want to be in a private room with one individual and provide, have the healing energy channeled through me in that way, not to have it in a room of all these other people
So
that were having it.
To give an analogy for the audience,
I would want a private room. I would want a word of mouth. I would want to see if they've gone through all 3 certifications to get their master's, and that's what I would look for in a Reiki provider.
So for the audience, I'm trying to think with 2 brains, right? I'm thinking with my lay brain, and I'm thinking with my healer brain, because I've had a lot of exposure to a lot of different healing methods. Right. So for the lay brain, what you're describing as far as being in a room open in front of everyone, in my head, I think when I have my computer on a Wi-Fi at BurgerFi, and it's exposed to everybody, right? Your private stuff is out there. that's what I'm trying to give, to tell other people. That's kind of what you're saying in that way.
Yeah, because if you have multiple practitioners working on multiple people simultaneously, as their energy fields are opened, although Reiki is a protected energy, I would rather not be exposed to those things, because I really don't know who all of these other practitioners are, what their abilities are, or even if they see things that float around, because not everybody sees spiritual energies. Some people think, you're delusionary whenever you see things. But I can see them. And so I would be warranted not to do
Gotcha.
that.
So let's talk about, in the last, I would say, 10 years, you've honed in on your own musical abilities. I would say was that accurate? Like in the last 10 years, you've really come into your own with using music to heal you?
I got into, I actually got into it in my early 20s. I had grew up playing music with my grandfather all along the Blue Ridge Parkway, and my first husband also played the guitar, so we played a lot. And then in 96 I decided to get involved in midwifery, and I was actually a professional musician. I had been playing with a band in the Orlando area for several years, and musicians are always in a multitude of bands. So I was in the Robert Cody Revival. There was a duet I did called Rhythm and Brown, because the guy's name was, instead of Rhythm and Blues, and his name was Lonnie Brown. So we kind of did a little twist on that. And I was in a couple of other bands. And so whenever I got involved in midwifery and went into school for midwifery, it overtook my opportunity to go out and play. And then, of course, becoming a midwife and being on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I couldn't commit to gigs. And I still played and still wrote songs. I actually put an album out in 2000, because my entire life has been about music and medicine. And I always tell everybody my life is a musical, and I sing, and I've always got a song in my head. I got a song for everything. No matter what it is or where it is or what we're doing, I'm singing a song. And so I just knew that if I didn't incorporate that and truly embrace music and medicine, that it just wouldn't fly, because I tried, it wouldn't work. So once I just kept with music and medicine, it just kept coming. So everything. And in the last 8 years in particular, I got involved for inspiration with a group of women that supported each other to help inspire how to write better songs with better music to get the flow going much better. So I got involved with a group called the Swamp Sisters, and we would all have these things where we would pick 3 words and try to make a song around these 3 words. And through that, I got very involved with and made another band, and it's called Mother Medicine Music, because I think medicine is part of a healing process and healing journey. Medicine with where music takes you back, it helps you with memories, it triggers things in you that are beneficial for your happiness. I listen to music, everything from meditation to rock and roll, and lots of different genres. I have it's just been a while. Playing guitar, playing drums, playing flutes, learning how to play multiple instruments, because it's not always feasible to pack your guitar everywhere you go. So I try to get some more lightweight instruments so that I could carry a flute on a trail if I was hiking and I wanted to play, or things like that. So it was just about true inspiration and listening to the intuition that came to me, and then following those little magical intersections that we call coincidences. But I truly feel they're very purposeful, and opening those doors as they come open.
So I've done a lot of reading about music and high frequency, low frequency healing. They talk about, I think it was John Lennon back in the day would talk about the frequency of music and how it was changed from a love vibration to more of a mind control or manipulative frequency, behind all the music or the writings of the music. How does that play a part in the way that you heal when you're doing, let's say, sweat lodge work, or when you're working with someone through energy healing? Do you play music or different frequencies, crystal bowls? Do you use that type of thing when you're working with someone?
I do, and I use the harmonic earth frequency megahertz 4.333. So it is a shamanic. It's a low hum. It's in the key of A, and it has a resonance that it's actually the sound that the earth makes as she's spinning, and it's been incorporated because I'm not the only one that there's hundreds and hundreds of musicians that have tapped into
Right.
this and they've used it for the foundation of their music. And so you have that hum that's going, and then they'll do like a heartbeat drum or some flute playing. And even to the point that there was a great study that was done, a medical study at the Taos Pueblo in Taos, New Mexico, where they utilized the drum beat, the heartbeat, to regulate dysrhythmias and heart issues for people having challenges. And it was a very interesting study. I'm sure you can look it up online, and to understand that the heartbeat, and if you are upset, the first thing that you need to do is calm yourself. And sometimes people need tools to do that, to sit and breathe. And if you can get a plastic bowl and a wooden spoon and, do the heartbeat drum on it to help your body calm down, it actually lowers blood pressure. It regulates dysrhythmias. That's whenever your heart's not beating like thump, 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 and it has irregular heart rate. It can calm that down. It can regulate that. And so I loved that our elders in that community got visions about how important it was to get this study and to make it happen and to show and prove to people in ways that they would accept scientific data to show that music is a medicine.
Yeah. I remember back when I got a puppy for the first time, and I've had lots of fur babies, that they used to say to play a heartbeat in the their little puppy bed, right? And wrap it. It used to be the tick-tock of an alarm clock, but it was better if you used something that had a heartbeat sound to make the dog not cry through the night.
Even human babies.
I assume so. I don't have one of those, but you've known.
Well, that was one thing I really like, that Build-A-Bear company. Yes. And we've used it a lot, so the Build-A-Bear has this little device that you can record something on and stick it in the bear. And so we've done it for human babies to calm them, like mom sing a lullaby, or as a midwife, what I would do is I would actually record the baby's heartbeat from the Doppler onto that device, and then they would listen to their own heartbeat in the doll, the bear, whatever they choose to stuff it in. Yeah, for them to calm down, and it really works.
Awesome. I hadn't heard of that. I assumed that it would be the mother's heartbeat that would calm the baby down, but that's interesting that they would listen to their own. So,
well, I can record any heartbeat with a Doppler.
That's awesome.
It doesn't matter what mom or baby, because that's the first thing that a baby ever hears is its own heartbeat, and it's
of course
heartbeat.
Echoing in the fluid. Yeah, that's really fascinating.
Because fluid is a conductor.
So to come back to the hum of the earth, the planet itself, I've heard a lot of people on different podcasts talk about meditation during the hours of like 3, 4, 5 a.m. where the earth is humming at its loudest because everything is quiet. Do you subscribe to that thought as well?
I do. In my tradition, it is the PowerPoints of the day are as dawn is coming, or so if either the sun is rising or the sun is setting. It's not necessarily a specific time, but it's those magical hours where we're changing from night to day or day to night. It's those intermittent times where the sun is rising, the sun is setting.
And so I attended a sweat lodge with you for the first time after all these years. I'm not sure how or why it happened this time, but magically I got there and things happened. And I wanted to ask you what when you're using sage to clear someone as they're coming through the area to get into the sweat lodge zone, if you will, do you pray for them, on them, with them, or is the sage doing the job itself?
Well, sage has its own intention, and it's an ally that I work with. I was taught that sage is a purification. It is used in native traditions, and not just North America, but in many traditions. Sage or another comparable herb like Palo Santos is for South America, and like holy basil is for European continents and India. So incenses are used in many traditions to clear a room, to set a precedence, and to prepare yourself for ceremony. And so we use sage because of my native traditions, white sage in particular, or desert sage. And it's about smudging the whole area where you're going to be praying in, smudging the lodge, smudging the people as they come in to keep that cleansed and renewed, and preparing everybody for ceremony.
So time is ticking away for us. We've been chatting for a little while, and I'd like to have you come back and we can talk into a greater depth about a few things, especially like the sweat lodge thing. I really would like people to learn a little bit more about what that's all about. I think people have a misconception about it as a meditative, not just a meditative healing experience, but I think people have a misconception about what can happen in a sweat lodge. We talked a little bit about what happened on this last one, and I'll leave that as a teaser for other people. As a musician yourself right now, are you doing anything? Are you releasing anything? Can people find you on the internet? How do we cross promote you as a musician and healer?
So Mother Medicine Music has a .org, so mothermedicinemusic.org, that you can go on to the website and check out the journey. I try to keep up with it as a shaman person. Technology in me doesn't.
I feel you on that.
I try to keep up with that. But so I'm working on that. So, but I do have a site. I'm also on Facebook as Mother Medicine Music. I'm on Instagram as Mother Medicine 88. And we have shows. The band is playing. I play a lot down at Fish on Fire on Thursday nights as an open mic. I go down there and help the band out.
Right? Orlando.
Say again?
Okay.
Yeah, Orlando, Florida. And in Oviedo, we're playing November the 18th at Rock and Brews. We are playing December the 2nd there. I'm scheduled through about once a month through next June with Rock and Brews in Oviedo. I'm down at the Whiskey on Sand Lake Road some. I've got a gig there January the 28th, I believe. I will be at Spill on October the 18th. There's a Winter Springs is having a fall festival, and Spill is hosting a lot of musicians that day. I'll be one of them. I'll have an hour set there at Spill. So there's a lot of things coming up for the fall season for music, because music heals our soul.
And of course, the weather in Florida is going to be a whole lot better.
Yes, it is. This year's been remarkably good.
I know. I'm knocking on wood that we don't get any weird hurricanes. Other than that, I'm looking forward to the fall.
Yay!
Right. It's good to have you. Thank you so much. I'd like to see you soon back on the show.
Yeah.